The Prime Minister today pledged British boots on the ground and planes in the air in Ukraine as a face-off against Russia ramps up.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
OK, I'm going to be brutally honest tonight. I deplore their invasion of Ukraine, but I have little interest in Russia. I also have little interest in Ukraine, other than I hope they win their war against the invaders. Israel, too, isn't my priority. Gaza isn't my problem either. And this doesn't come from a lack of empathy. I've spent many hours watching brutal videos of young Russian and Ukrainian men killing each other in filthy Donbass trenches. Some 1.5 million people have died, reportedly. Sons, daughters, mothers, fathers. I imagine the pain their families are feeling while leaders in dark suits talk about their future over expensive dinners on the continent. But ultimately, I have to care most about what's going on in this country, our country, because charity starts at home. Migrant hotels decimating our communities, the invasion of our southern border, pensioners freezing to death, the land grab on British farmers, record high taxes, record high immigration, attacks on free speech, Pakistani rape gangs, paedophiles being spared prison, the decimation of our military, our bloated civil service, criminal asylum seekers being allowed to stay here because their offspring don't like foreign chicken nuggets. I wish the Ukrainians well. I've been there before. I've spent time with their people. They are generous, they're polite, they're hardworking, and as we've seen over the past 3 years, they are courageous. But I find it hard to get impassioned about a war that's nearly 2,000 miles away, involving a country that's not even part of NATO. And I understand some people are going to be watching this now at this very moment and calling me ignorant or uninformed. I've heard the arguments. Ukraine is the last bastion against the Russians invading mainland Europe. Poland will be next, they say, then Putin is on our shores. But I also remember when we were spun into an illegal invasion of Iraq using the lie of weapons of mass destruction. So forgive me if I distrust hypotheticals. It was only a few years ago, The Guardian, of all people, were telling us Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries on earth. And let's talk about the money, shall we, as well? How can a government plead poverty at home and, by their own research, subject up to 4,000 pensioners to a cold death by scrapping their winter fuel allowance, yet find an extra £1.6 billion down the back of the sofa today for trench and drone warfare between Slavic adversaries? And also, what happened to the £22 billion black hole? Is there a magic money tree after all? Or has all this conjecture from the government about being left in economic mess simply been political spinning and lies? His performance and approval ratings at home are poor, to say the least, but the Prime Minister has earned plaudits this week for his work on the international stage. He hosted European leaders today and declared Britain's priority was to protect a country suffering volatile times.
We are at a crossroads in history today. This is not a moment for more talk. It's time to act, time to step up and lead, and to unite around a new plan for a just and enduring peace.
The Prime Minister also met Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni today to talk about Ukraine and, interestingly, tackling illegal migration.
That I've been also proposing a meeting between US and European leaders for if we divide ourselves, that will make us all weaker. Yeah. And then on bilateral topics, I'm very happy about the work we've been doing together.
Number 10 said after their meeting, and I quote in a statement, "The two leaders acknowledged positive progress made since their last meeting in joint work to tackle irregular migration." Their words, not mine. They agreed secure borders are the bedrock of a secure economy. Well, guess what happened just a few hours later? News today that 500 more migrants arrived on small boats across the English Channel. The biggest single day of arrivals this year. You just couldn't make it up. By 7 a.m. today, 120 migrants had been taken to the Border Force Processing Centre in Dover. An hour and a half later, that number had doubled, or risen rather, to 250. And by 3:30 this afternoon, GB News counted a total of 505 migrants as they arrived at Dover Harbour. So who are they? Where are they from? What are their intentions? Where are they going to end up? These are the questions that bother me. I wish Ukraine well. Russia can stop this war immediately by stopping their invasion. But for now, my priorities lie with making Britain great again. Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today. Get the thoughts of my panel now. The businessman and activist Adam Brooks, GB News contributor Chloe Dobbs, and the media strategist Andy Swelves. Good evening to you all. Thank you for your company on this fine Sunday. Adam Brooks, let's start with you because I can see you chomping at the bit there in the corner. What do you make of my concerns about the fact I think we're paying too much attention to foreign wars abroad and not the situation back home in the
Listen, I agree with everything you said there, to be fair, because it's my opinion too, and I've been very vocal on social media. This country is falling apart. You know, whether it's our roads, whether it's our health system, our policing, we haven't got enough prisons, our hospital waiting list, and the excuse every time from Keir Starmer is we do not have the money to fix this. You've got to put your taxes up. You know, they've come for the businesses in the April budget. So I don't see how we can celebrate this. Let's all get behind Ukraine. Yes, I'm like you. I want this to end. But only Donald Trump can end this war. Putin is only going to listen to Trump. He's not going to listen to Starmer and Macron or any of the European leaders. It's only when Donald Trump says enough is when Putin stops and sits at the table. And I think the Labour Party are trying to spin this. Starmer, you know, he did okay in the last week. He was a bit cringy, I thought, with Trump.
I think he did all right, you know.
But
I don't think he was.
They're trying to spin this as his Thatcher moment. No, this is not your Thatcher moment at all, you know. And people need to remember that. It only stops when Trump wants this war to stop.
I actually think Keir Starmer had his best week as Prime Minister yet, and that's saying something. But Chloe, what's your thoughts? Are we paying too much attention to this Ukraine situation? As I said in the introduction there, some people will say, they'll be watching this tonight saying, yes, but Ben, once Ukraine falls, Putin will then be knocking on the door of Poland, then he'll be arriving on the shores of Britain. Do you buy that?
Look, I think that I was very proud of Britain for being the first country when this war broke out to really stand up and say, we support Ukraine, we will help you. If countries didn't back Ukraine and help them financially and with weapons, Putin would have probably ended that war in a week as he had hoped to. So I'm glad that we have supported them. But we're getting to the point now where there has to be an end in sight. As Adam says, this country is crumbling. Taxes keep going up and up. We don't seem to have enough money for the electorate, and people are starting to feel like their politicians are putting people overseas ahead of them, and that is problematic. And I really felt like, although it was good for Keir Starmer to bring people together and have a conversation and talk about how we support Ukraine going forward, I did not see any end in sight. They were saying there that the end of the war needs to be on Ukraine's terms. And sure, of course, Ukraine needs to be involved in negotiations and it has to be beneficial to them. But Putin has to benefit in some way to agree to some kind of deal, else this is never going to end. They've got a really utopian vision about it, and it's problematic.
Andy, do you agree that Keir Starmer is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde at the moment? On the world stage, and again, I'll give him it, he's done well this week, but domestically, approval ratings in the gutter. He's had a lower vote share than Corbyn winning the election, and what they've done domestically since then is lacklustre, to say the least. So it's a tale of two halves. You've got Starmer, the international peacemaker, and then at home, quite frankly, he's been a bit useless.
Sure, I think the domestic policy is always more of a long-term game. You know, you can't really get short-term wins at home. But I think, you know, in your monologue, you mentioned about making Britain great again. And I think Keir Starmer has actually shown that in the last week. You know, when we were at our most influential, our most powerful, you know, just post-colonial, post-empire, we were the power brokers of the world. And that's what Keir Starmer has shown this week. You know, when Zelensky and Trump had their skirmish in the White House and they'd stormed off, he was the one that called them both up and tried to get them back in the room.
No, that's
today, even, you know, bringing the European leaders together, this is what Britain is for. We are to convene, we are to bring the power together. And I think when you know, our contributions to Ukraine, you know, the 1.6 billion, that's paying for itself through the seized Russian assets. So it's not really a case of, well, we're taking from the farmers and giving to Ukraine. We're taking from Russians and giving to Ukraine.
That was yesterday's announcement, the 2.2 billion freezing Russian assets. There's another 1.6 billion today. That's fine what you just said about Starmer in the White House and being the mediator between Zelensky and Trump. But what use is it when we've got pensioners freezing at home, we've got thousands of people coming across the border illegally, ending up in communities all up and down Britain, affecting our very way of life. We don't, as I said, we don't know who they are, where they're from, what their intentions are. You've got farmers, the very people who put food on our tables, day in, day out, being attacked by the government, not for economic means, may I add, a paltry £500 million a year. What's the point of all that, Andy, when he's making such a mess at home?
I mean, on some of those, you know, you can hardly blame Keir Starmer. You know, I think you mentioned the military being, you know, decimated. You can't blame him. He's only been in power 7 months. You know, you look at migration, you can't really blame him. It takes longer than 7 months to fix the small boats crisis.
He's going to smash the gangs.
I think it's working. You know, he's speaking to Georgia Maloney. Georgia Maloney
the numbers are going up.
Hasn't it gone down 41%?
No, absolutely not. We've had over 25,000 come across on boats since Starmer took power, which is going to put us on track for maybe up to 50,000 across the year. When they came into power in July, you then had the summer with nice, clear skies, flat seas for people to cross. But they waited until the autumn, after that peak time, to actually appoint someone to be the head of their new Border Force Command.
Well, that was a civil service appointment. That was a civil service appointment. That wasn't Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer doesn't control the civil service.
OK. Adam, last words to you very quickly. Just Starmer, we should be paying more attention to the UK than what's going on 100%. In 2,000 miles away.
Everyone I speak to in the real world and not online is pulling their hair out at the state of this country, Ben. And if you ask them whether they would want Ukraine prioritised or this country prioritised, it would be this country every single time. So this media spin that Ukraine is everyone's be-all and end-all is wrong.
Also, but just to add, it's spin from the Prime Minister as well. When he had Zelensky in Downing Street yesterday, he was saying all of Britain, everybody across Britain has your support. And I was just thinking, well, who are you speaking for? You got 30% of the vote, less than Corbyn, and you're saying that everybody in Britain...
More than any other party, though. More than any other party.
Peace deals now, sending more missiles. How has that happened in a few days? How?
OK, great start. Thank you very much.